It's another Tuesday, and my name is Kobe Spiking Chroma with Geek Squad. I know you guys have missed me because I have to. And yeah, AFCON took me away from everyone, but I'm back. And what a way to start or to resume the show than to celebrate a technological anniversary. About 50 years ago, something marvelous happened. Now, I'll give you a bit of background to this. Right now in our culture, there's so much high tech. We have wearable computers, we have the Internet of Things, we have rockets that fly themselves to space and back to where they took off from. And in 50 years ago, the Apollo 11 moon landing and Neil Armstrong's giant leap for mankind somehow is fading from memory. People are sort of forgetting that this happened because, 50 years ago. But it's a remarkable bit of history that we need to talk about. We need to remind people where we came from. Now, for anyone born after July 20th, 1969, the day Neil Armstrong set foot on the surface of the moon, there has never been a time when humanity was bound to Earth alone. Now we're seeing people launching cars into space. Like, we've seen people planning to go and spend holidays in space. And after that, there's been so many subsequent moon landings and the near disaster of the Apollo 13. But today, we're going to discuss all that. We're going to get into the background. We're going to get into the history. Before that, I want you to listen to this soundbite.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful from here, Neil. It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here.
Every precious minute of their 2.5 hours on the surface was programmed. Rock and soil samples were to be collected, photographs taken, experiments set up to catch unfiltered particles from the sun, to record moonquakes, to measure precisely by laser beam reflection the exact distance between moon and Earth.
Columbia, this is Houston, AOS, over. Houston, Columbia, Highgate, over. Roger, the EVA is progressing beautifully. They're setting up the flag now. I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene.
Yeah, so what you heard was Neil Armstrong's famous one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. And to have this conversation with me in the studio, I have Dr. Yakubu Akparibu. He is an aerospace medicine specialist. And Doc, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Kobe, and thank you too for having me. And good evening to your listeners.
A very good evening to them too. So, the space race. 50 years ago, man set foot on the moon. When I decided to talk about this, everybody was going like, it was the white people that set foot on the moon, not the black people. What has this got to do with us? So, briefly, I want you to tell us, what has the moon landing got to do with us?
Yeah. Just like you played the voice of Neil Armstrong, as he said, it was a small step for a man, but a very giant leap for mankind.
Yeah.
And that is exactly it. So 60 years ago, that was how things started. And today, there's so much going on in space that I think is been beneficial to mankind. And it's not just to the Western world, but even to us in Africa. Now, you look everywhere, people use the internet, people go on Facebook and that kind of stuff. You know, it all has to got to do with space exploration. All the satellites that we use started with this moon landing.
So basically, without the moon landing, we wouldn't have the internet as we have it today.
Sure. Yeah, because that actually made us believe that there was like nothing impossible for mankind.
Exactly.
And it led to so much discoveries that I'm sure as the program goes along, we'll talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So now, moving from that, what pushed the Americans to want to go to the moon? I mean, you're sitting down looking at the moon in the sky and thinking, I can't go to the moon.
Yeah. So when we talk about space, we have something called like low Earth orbit and then beyond low Earth orbit. So in the 1950s and early 60s, there was a space race between the Americans and the Russians.
Yeah.
So the Russians first launched a living an animal, that's the dog, onto space. And then after that, then they also followed with the human being. So now it was more of a challenge for the U.S. to also also achieve something in regards to this. And President Kennedy in 1961 then challenged NASA, asked them that he wanted them to put up a program that would take a human being to the moon. And it's all about exploration. So you look at how even like Earth started. Christopher Columbus, like discovered like so many places and that kind of stuff. The British came here. So it's just about that. We want to explore to see what is beyond us. Yeah.
Great. So beyond exploration,
what
do we need to know about traveling into outer space?
Yeah. So when we talk about space, it's really very difficult to define that. But then I'll just use some few parameters to let you understand what it is. Growing up, I thought like when you look up above the sky, beyond a certain point was going to be heaven.
Yeah, we all thought that.
I don't know how you, but growing up, that was how, like, that was my thinking. I thought God was up there, that kind of stuff. But then, space exploration has, like, doing this course and all that has really, like, opened up my mind, and I now understand what things are. So, like, you travel above a certain height, above sea level, then you're going to get into like an atmosphere or an environment where you don't have air.
Right.
So as you go up, then the air, like the atmosphere gets thinner. So you get to a certain point. So let's take it about 80 kilometers above sea level. That is when we start to say you are in space, because at that time, at that altitude, you don't have like aerodynamic forces. Ordinary aeroplane cannot fly at that altitude, so definitely that's why you need to have like rockets. So at that point, we can say like you are above the Earth's surface. There's another definition, that is, we know that if at above 63,000 feet, which is called the Armstrong line, if you take out your tongue this way, your saliva is going to evaporate. If you have, like, you take out your hand, all body fluids are going to turn into gases, So at those points, that is when we say, like, you are into space.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why do you call it space? Because space is basically something that I'm craving on my computer right now.
Yeah.
It's just space. But why do we call that space?
Yeah, just like I explained, it's just because of the nature of the environment there. Here, everything supports life. You're able to breathe and that kind of stuff. At that point, life cannot be supported if you are not in certain systems.
Right.
So, in effect, you are in space, like you are in an empty kind of atmosphere, if I should put it that way. So that's why
they call it space.
Yeah, obviously.
So because of this lack of our atmosphere, that's why the astronauts have to wear spacesuits to go into space.
Exactly. So what happens is what you see the astronauts wear is called a pressure suit. So something like that is more like a life support system. The temperature there is controlled, there's oxygen and all that kind of stuff. If there's a leak in that suit that you see them wear, if there's a small leak there, it's going to be catastrophic, So going into space, normally astronauts go using like a capsule. You need to launch through a rocket.
Yeah.
And like I explained to you, at certain point there won't be aerodynamic forces, so you cannot fly with normal jet engine. So you need something more
Powerful.
powerful to be able to propel somebody up there. So when they move up there, they are into a capsule. We have something we call extravehicular activity.
Okay.
So it's when they want to move out, that's when you have to be in the spacesuit. So
Okay.
it's always, so when Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, you saw those pictures,
Yeah.
when they wanted to walk on the
On the
moon,
moon.
they had to wear that
spacesuit.
suit. Yeah.
Right.
Because they had come out of the capsule. Yeah. So that's the main reason.
Great.
Yeah.
So, does space travel affect your body?
Sure.
Hmm.
Sure. Space travel affects our bodies in several ways. So if you go into space,
Yeah.
what happens is that the gravity, let me take like on the moon, the gravity on the moon is about 1/6 that of Earth. That of Mars is about 1/3 that of Earth. So if you take like a 20 kilogram object on Earth, it's going to weigh less than about 1/6 on the moon, you know. And then in low Earth orbit is virtually zero. It's like weightlessness. So because of that, when you go in, like most of your body fluid is going to be moving towards your head. So we call it cephalad movement. So because of that, you need to do certain things in order to keep balance. If you don't do that, then your cardiovascular, your heart is going to be deconditioned. You know, there was, I think, one of the astronauts came out, and when they landed, then they went into, like, the media wanted to speak with them, so they went to the press conference, and then that person collapsed. And that actually taught us flight surgeons to know that, no, you don't, when they come, so these days when they come, you don't see that they do those kind of press conferences and all that. Because when you come back, your cardiovascular system or your heart is going to be deconditioned. And then if you're not careful, then...
So when you say deconditioned, what exactly happens to the heart?
Yeah, so what happens is, because the blood and all that, like, moves towards, like, your head, then the muscles of the heart then gets, like, relaxed, if I should put it that way. So you notice that most people in space need to always be exercising, especially when you watch on, like, the astronauts in the ISS and all that. There's a rigid exercise regime for everyone. You know, they are like exercise equipment, the muscle strength, and all that. So you need to do that in order for your heart to stay fit. Yeah.
So besides these preparations for the flight, say the exercises and things that they have to do, is there any other special preparations that astronauts need to go through before they go out into space?
Yeah, to actually become an astronaut, normally most of them, it takes a minimum of about 6 years of training before. Yeah, it takes a minimum of about 6 years of training before you even get your first flight. And this training involves so many things. You need to do, like, survival training. You need to do train for, like, weightlessness. We have something called parabolic flights that you can use to train. And then we have, like, when you go to Cologne, I had the opportunity to visit the European Space Agency. They have, like, a very huge pool there that we call the Neutral Buoyancy Center. So they use all that to prepare themselves in order to counter the effects of space.
Wow.
So there's that, and then they need to also train, like, basic first aid. Like, normally we don't put, like, a flight surgeon on board.
Okay.
Yeah, flight surgeons were always on the ground, and then we get, like, the astronauts do, like, the basic labs, and they send it to us on the ground, and then we look at it. And yeah, so because of that, almost every astronaut is more like a doctor. Like, one person is chosen as, like, the crew medical officer, and he or she is given so much training. So the training takes so much, and it's like a very long period, like I explained.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow. So just for the astronauts, now I'm very curious, because growing up, I know a lot of people used to say, well, I want to be a pilot when I grow up, but I barely heard any of my mates or any of the kids so far say I want to be an astronaut. Well, basically because of the part of the world that we find ourselves in.
Sure.
But is it like a career path that some people actually wake up and say, this is what I want to pursue? I want to be an astronaut. and then they work towards it, or it's a side job that they do.
Yeah, so it's like you rightly said, most people normally have that dream that like they want to become astronauts. So normally most of the guys who went to space, most of them until recently have been military guys.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they've been like military pilots and then Navy pilots and that kind of stuff. So normally like they have they go through their training to become like get their profession and that kind of stuff. And then when it's advertised that like they need astronauts, then people apply.
Okay.
Yeah, but the selection is always thorough. Like you go through several stages, and like you said, in Ghana, for sure you can't be here and then be thinking like you want to become an astronaut because we don't have like a space program. You need to be an American citizen, you know, or maybe an European citizen, and or Japanese. Like those nationals are the ones that go. But pretty much soon, if you're a Ghanaian and you have money,
you can
you'll be able to go.
to space.
Yeah, you'll become an astronaut. So let's see who becomes the first Ghanaian astronaut.
Definitely, if I decide to go, I'm going to come to you for consultation. So that was talking about going to the moon. Men were the ones who went to the moon, and there's news about the first woman going to the moon in 2024.
Yeah.
Now, before we get to that, in the 60s, we know that was a very serious time where women were not allowed to do a lot of things during that period. But there were some very, very important women who played an instrumental role in the Apollo 11 launch.
Yeah.
Now, I was very, very interested when I saw this.
Yeah.
Back then, we didn't have as smart computers as we had now.
Yeah.
And for them to do what they did, I would want you to elaborate some of the mathematical equations that you needed to come up with to calculate how to get to the moon. I mean, you get what I'm saying? 'Cause it's so complicated.
Sure.
I don't even know how they thought about it.
Yeah. So it's pretty much physics and mathematics. And growing up, like in secondary school, we're taught like Newton's law of motion, first, second, and third law of motion, law of gravitation, that kind of stuff. Space all has to do with that, So what we in Ghana have lacked is that we haven't been able to develop what we learn in the basic or secondary level, and then use it like in order to like translate into real life situations.
Yeah.
That's what our educational system hasn't gotten to. And I hope that we'll be able to catch that soon. So it's pretty much like I explained, it's Newton's laws, and then Kepler, and then the law of gravitation and all that. So you want something to escape the atmosphere. So you just need to calculate the escape velocity of it. You need to know the mass of the thing, and then you know the escape velocity. Then you know that kinetic energy is what, half mv squared. So you work out your velocity, and then So in building the rocket, you need to build a rocket that is going to propel your object, knowing the velocity that you need to escape.
Yeah.
So in doing that, you just use those simple equations, and then you're able to work it out.
So from that simple equation, it breaks down into a much more complex equation in burning fuel, calculating how much fuel you have to burn.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so you need to, so all that we see, like you see like cylindrical objects. Yeah. So normally those ones don't go into orbit itself. So those are normally the fuel, and some can go as high as 30 stories, 22, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like burning that kind of, so you can imagine how much weight that is,
Yeah.
And that is what SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, is trying to do now. Before we just burn that fuel and then it goes waste. Now SpaceX want to recycle the rockets,
and bring them back.
and when they're able to do that, then space travel is going to become very, very cheap. And for sure, when that happens, hopefully one day Africans will also be able to
space.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah.
Do you by chance know how much it cost them to get to the moon back then?
Wow.
Because it looks like
Yeah.
back then everything was proprietary.
Yeah. Yeah, that's surely going to be a colossal sum. I think, like, if you want to translate it to current numbers, it's going to be so high. Yeah, but like I initially said, space travel is not cheap. You know, launching one satellite alone can cost about $200 million. You know,
wow.
so I guess like the Apollo program definitely would have cost run into like $1 billion or more.
Thank goodness we
yeah.
have Google.
Yeah.
And I just Googled it, and according to a recent analysis by the Planetary Society,
Yeah.
that translates into an estimated $288.1 billion.
So
Like, wow.
you can imagine.
That's in today's money.
Yeah.
Back then, it was about $28 billion.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
That was a huge budget.
sure.
And they actually believed that they could do this. And they did.
Exactly. And in the 60s, for sure, America also had infrastructural problems like Ghana has now,
Yeah.
you know, but definitely they made up their mind that they wanted to do something, and they were able to achieve it.
So,
Yeah.
all these, you mentioned the space agencies
Yeah.
in the different countries.
Yeah.
Are they all doing the same thing?
Yeah, the Western countries have come together. So when I say Western countries, I mean like the EU, Europeans, the US, the Canadians, the Japanese have also joined them.
Okay.
So they've come together to like form like
an
one,
alliance.
an alliance. And then the Russians are
I
also
was just
on the
about
other
to
side.
ask.
Yeah. But then the most interesting thing is with the ISS, these two countries have come together to build that massive structure in space. You know, the ISS is one of the biggest achievement of mankind, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, it's like launching like a football field onto space.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what, and it involves so much money. And we've actually benefited so much from it because they've been many health discoveries, technological advancement, and that kind of stuff from the ISS.
So was that the main purpose for which they launched the ISS into space?
Yeah, so the main purpose that they did that was mostly to carry out experiments, because now our target is to go beyond the moon. Now we want to go to Mars.
Yes.
You know, so the main aim of the ISS was like to do more research to find out how human response will be in like long term in space,
Right.
because it takes going to ISS may take you about less than 24 hours.
Okay.
You know, going to the moon took about 2 days. They launched in on the 18th, and then they landed around 20th. So that's about 2 days. Now going to Mars is going to take us about 6 to 9 months.
Wow.
6 to 9 months. You can imagine about maybe 4 people crumbled in that small capsule.
Yeah.
You know, so ISS was to study how human response will be, and so far people have stayed there for over 1 year. Scott Kelly, he was like the longest U.S. Astronaut to have stayed there to just about some few days before 1 year, and then he was brought down. Then but the Russians have achieved that. So we now know that human beings can actually withstand the effects of space for more than 1 year. And that came from the ISS.
So
Yeah.
being in space, does it affect your aging?
For now, we are not able to conclusively say that. Research, when Scott Kelly I just mentioned, Scott Kelly, they are twins.
Right.
So before launch, they took their height. And then he went to stay there just some few days to 1 year, and then came down, and then he was taller than his twin brother. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But recent data that has come out has shown that after a certain time, your height comes back to where you started. So his height has returned back.
Okay.
So aging, in regards to aging, now we don't have like clinical data to really say for sure that it will make you grow older or it will make you younger. Yeah.
Because I saw on the internet people were claiming that it slows down your aging.
Yeah.
Could his height be a reason could it be attributed to the fact that, like you mentioned, the blood is flowing towards your head? So basically, he's stretching head first.
Yeah. So it's not just only the blood; it even has effect on the bones.
Oh.
Yeah. So you see, when especially with women,
Yeah.
when we aging, then we have something called osteoporosis. Like bone density gets like reduced due to some hormonal changes and that kind of stuff. It's just a similar mechanism. So we have like DEXA studies done on astronauts, and we know that bone, like when if you are there and you don't do like resistive exercise and all that, that process of osteoporosis that happens in female is going to also happen to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, there's this part of the internet that believes that the moon landing
Yeah.
was fake.
Yeah.
And so many people actually believe them. It even extends to the side of the internet where people actually believe that the whole Earth is flat.
Yeah.
Now, before we get to the flat Earth theorists, let's deal with the conspiracy theorists who believe that the moon landing was fake.
Yeah.
Why would anyone begin to think that?
Yeah, with conspiracy theorists, they are all over the place and they always want to believe something otherwise. And for sure, I from what I know the moon landing wasn't fake. I've seen a capsule that actually landed in the moon. The one that was used by the Air Force.
Right.
Now it's now in Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, where I was based.
Okay.
So I've seen those real like kind of stuff. I've spoken to astronauts. Like the data, I've seen like so much
Yeah, so much
data
proof.
that proof to tell me that it wasn't a hoax. Yeah, and for sure, Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they transmitted live pictures.
Yes.
You know, there was like audio transmission order, although there's always a delay. Even in ISS, there's about 3 or 4 minutes delay. So there's like always like a delay in communication. But those were live audios, you know. So the conspiracy theorists, no matter what you do, they will still have their
own
opinion, you know.
To the extent that a company, a chip manufacturer called NVIDIA,
Yeah.
had to actually recreate the whole moon landing and visualize the light reflection and everything to show
Sure.
that it couldn't have been fake.
Fake, exactly.
And to still think that people think it was fake.
Did you read about, there was this guy, I think he's the chief conspiracy theorist or something, who believed that like the earth was flat.
Yes, they
You-
actually believe that
He
the Earth
believed
is
that,
flat.
and then he tried to prove it. I think it was recent, not long ago. And then gravity, Newton's law, gravity brought him down, you know. So,
Anyway, so
yeah.
it's quite interesting. Now, on that note, let me just remind you, you're listening to Geek Squad on Joy 99.7. We're talking about, we're basically remembering the 50th anniversary of the moon landing and talking about how it has impacted technology, and without which we wouldn't have had Wi-Fi. We wouldn't have had technologies that
Sure.
we have now, mobile networks,
That's
everything,
true.
because it relies on the satellites that are in outer space. Now, Doc,
Yeah.
Ghana, the country where we find ourselves in, which always finds technology catching up with us later,
Yeah.
or we catching up with technology later, whichever one people prefer. But what would it take for us to venture into space?
Yeah.
And why would we want to do it?
Yeah, I think it's surely going to be beneficial for Ghana if we venture into space. One, it's like dominance. It makes you stand out amongst your peers. You can imagine like West Africa, then the year like Ghana, we have like a space agency, we're trying to go into space and all that. Then for sure, people are definitely going to be like, wow, these guys are really serious, you know. So that is one. The second one too is I think patriotism, and then also STEM education. That is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Yeah, we really need to strengthen that, and for sure, I think with that we'll be able to go, and the benefits are so much. Now the US is going to reap even economical.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be space tourism now. People are going to pay so much to go just to even do like suborbital flights. Suborbital is just going up and coming down, you know, and orbital flights will also later on. I believe that in the next 2 years we're going to have commercial space exploration. It's going, it's going to happen.
Virgin is pushing
Exactly.
that very, very.
Yeah. So for sure, if we venture into that, those are some of the benefits. The scientific ones, like I explained. Now, if we want to send a satellite, we have to contract another country. And technologies these days are like, you don't want another country to know what
Exactly what
you
you're
have,
doing.
you know.
Because
So
they can copy.
when you let somebody do that for you, basically everything that like you have in your country country is going to to know
Exactly.
or have it, you know. So if Ghana is able to venture into that, our satellites will launch them ourselves. And now internet penetration in Ghana, everywhere you go, people have like internet.
Yeah.
So all that is going to be advantageous, and I think government investing in STEM education would really benefit us.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, looking on the internet, National Space Research and Development Agency in Nigeria. So
Wow.
Nigeria actually has a space agency.
Yeah.
Now they're ahead of us. I think they have actually launched a couple of satellites into space.
Well, yeah.
They've launched
Yeah.
about 5 satellites into space.
Yeah.
Now, I'm envious of Nigeria. Because if these benefits that you are talking about
Sure.
are anything to go
Yeah.
by, then it means Nigeria is ahead of us. Now, if you're listening to us and you want to join in on the conversation, you can send us a WhatsApp or Telegram on 0244 340 437. The number is 0244 340 437. In a bit, I'll be opening the phone line so you can call and ask Doc some questions about space. If you're thinking of your child says, "Hey, Daddy, I want to be an astronaut," and you have some questions to ask, I'm sure Doc will have some answers for you. So, Doc, now still in Ghana.
Yeah.
I saw some time ago that one tertiary institution launched a weather capsule into space,
Yeah.
if I should put it that way.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people were going like, is that all that we could do?
Yeah.
You know, but is that one step, or that was just something that anybody could do?
Yeah, I haven't seen the details of that, but if they did that, I think it's really like a step in the right direction. Nothing small, like whatever they've done is going to motivate us and other people to also do better, you know. So if that school really did that, then we really have to praise them, and
Yeah.
then like hope that others will also follow suit.
Apparently,
Yeah.
what I also read was that they actually launched their capsule they piggybacked on someone's rockets, like you
Okay.
mentioned,
Exactly.
to launch that into
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
We have a message here from Charles in Pram Pram. Charles says, "Interesting conversation. Guys, I'm a space exploration fanatic. You guys seen the movie First Man? It's amazing. Best conversation, and kudos to you guys and Joy FM. Thanks a lot, Charles in Pram Pram." So, what's the future for space travel?
So, in answering this, I would divide it into two, like globally, and then also bring
Locally.
it down to
Right.
like Ghana. Yeah. So globally now, what we want to see is sending a living being into Mars.
Okay.
Yeah, that is now the future, and like I also mentioned, commercial space exploration, which I think is going to start pretty much soon. Yeah, and in sending people to Mars, that is a daunting task. It's really one of the biggest problems or that we have now, because like the dangers, as like I mentioned, from cosmic radiations to the gravity, and even psychological. You can imagine, like, even if you are home and you're not doing anything for like a day or two, like the depression that sets in.
Yeah.
So you can imagine putting human beings there for like 6 to 9 months without them doing something. You don't know whether they will get crazy and kill each other and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can't tell. So the future now, and President Trump also announced recently that he wants America to go back to the moon. Yeah. So NASA's now main objective now is to send somebody back to the moon,
yeah.
and then to Mars.
Okay.
You know, The Russians normally don't disclose their programs. The Russians, I think they are the leaders in space exploration, but normally they don't say what
They don't go public.
Yeah, they don't go public. So we don't know what is in their gloves now. Yeah, and coming back home, I think with like recently, like this science and maths quiz and that kind of, I hope that like Joy FM will continue with, like, or is it multimedia that sponsored them, would continue with that program, and for sure we'll have like future astronauts. Yeah, maybe in the next 10 years or something, we should be able to be thinking about doing that.
So that's
I'm very optimistic.
I mean, that's very optimistic. Some of the messages here are very funny. So I've got
and it could happen. Like
definitely.
20 years ago, I'm a graduate of the science. It used to be Bland Science and Maths. I represented my school. I think in 1996. That's 20-something years ago. And today, see who I am. So who knows? Maybe the guys coming.
Which school did you represent?
Navrongo Secondary.
Wonderful.
And those days we used to do well.
Yeah. So I have a message from my colleague Sammy Force, and he says he's never missed any SpaceX launch. And then he says Ghana is still dealing with flooding. We aren't thinking space exploration in our lifetime. We know get airlines serve. And we have another message on WhatsApp. Someone says, is it true that there are aliens on other planets like Mars? That's Nana say from Spintex. Is it true that we have... I mean, this is hot on the heels of the trending Area 51.
Yeah. It's good you're following. You're a fan of the aliens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now we know that there are like indications or signs that there's life in Mars.
Okay.
Because we've sent probes to Mars, and we know like there's methane there. And methane gas is normally like a byproduct of decomposition.
Yeah.
You know, so we know that there's like
definitely life
on
Mars.
But as to whether they are some kind of human beings, whatever, we don't know. Yeah. And that is why we want to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have another... Well, the Curiosity rover was there for a very long time.
Yeah.
It didn't encounter...
No.
So it must be that the Martians are very good at playing hide and seek. Or they are too small, we can't see them.
Yeah.
And we have another message that says, we can't even grow our own rice. You're talking about going to space. I beg. That's from Kwesi Dako from Adenta. Because you can't not be optimistic. You have to look... Yes, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Sure. And overall, Ghana is not that bad. Like when you compare to our peers, you travel out and then you talk to people. People respect us, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although we have so much problems, we have many. Like people said, there are like villages that people want food to eat, and it's a problem. Infrastructure like roads and that kind of stuff, but that should not take us. We should be thinking higher.
Yeah.
We should not just say,
limit ourselves.
Yeah, like I said, in the 60s, America also had problems, you know, but they had a goal and they were able to achieve it. So it's the same with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're listening to us and you want to join in the conversation, you can call us on 0302 216 541. The number is 0302 216 541. This is Geek Squad, and we're talking about space exploration and 50 years after the moon landing. So we have another message from Josh, the president of the Internet of Things community in Ghana. He says, great conversation going on. Thanks, Kobe and Doctor. Since our educational system or the country is not ready for space, what can space enthusiasts do? Can't we have space exploration community in Ghana? Because I think if we don't start something today, we will be left behind again in the space race. That's from Josh, the president of the Internet of Things community in Ghana.
Yeah.
Now, Josh is one big tech, fanatic. So I understand where he's coming from. And they're doing some marvelous jobs at the Internet of Things community. So we have another message who says, "Hi, Joy FM. Which is a greater achievement, Neil Armstrong landing on the moon or Yuri Gagarin journeying into outer space?" That's from Kelly in Osu.
So let me answer this. Yeah. So what Yuri Gagarin did was what we call, like I explained, low Earth orbit.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was launched into low Earth orbit, which is about 300 kilometers above sea level, you know, and then he went around the Earth once and then came down.
Okay.
You know, now the moon is far, is more than like what Yuri Gagarin did. What he did was also like remarkable. At that time, he was the only human being who had achieved that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not trying to downplay what he did, but then when you compare the two, going to the moon is definitely the biggest one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got your answer there. And then Nanase is very, 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 very interested in the UFOs. He says, how true are the UFO sightings in the USA and other developed countries, which suggest that aliens really exist? You know, I personally have been wondering, if the aliens, why don't they come to Africa?
and like you said, I think some U.S. Navy pilots recently said they sighted some UFOs, you know. So we can't actually tell whether
It could be anything.
So
we have a caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm very well.
Yeah, the name is Ben from Dansuman.
Ben, very nice to hear from you again.
Yeah, I was listening to the show, that was last week, but I was surprised you didn't open the line because we had someone in the studio who we could talk to, you know, because he invented the broadband, as you said, you know, so I had some questions for him, but I was surprised the phone line wasn't opened.
Ben, so sorry. Last week was a playback, unfortunately.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, let me ask my question now.
Sure, feel free.
Okay, so it was a playback, all right. So you have to get him into the studio so we ask questions. Anyway, my questions are, I mean, why is it that Africa is always left behind when it comes to some of these things? We only talk about it, space exploration, you know, but then we have so many professors here, you know, some of them even are dead, you know, they die with all the knowledge. What is the problem? Why can't we also go to space? Space is there for anybody to explore, right? So why are we just talking about it? We have the atomic, what about to atomic, the nuclear energy or whatever.
Yeah.
But we don't hear of them using nuclear energy to produce electricity or anything like that. Why is it so? So if the gentleman can answer the questions for me.
Sure, he will after we pick up this other call. We have Charles on the line. Hello, Charles.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Very well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say, look, you guys are having a wonderful conversation, all right?
Yes,
this is space exploration, and I sent a message earlier. I said I'm a space. I'm a fanatic, actually.
Right,
and
right.
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful conversation you guys are having. Let us not take anything away from the Russians, because they actually did a good job as well. Sputnik 2, Gagarin, and then to the moon. Now, Ghana can do a lot. So, guys, encourage the Ghanaians to come up, and guys, let's go to space. All right?
Thank you very much for calling, Charles.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So, Doc.
Yeah. So
Ben is very, very, emotional about us doing something.
Sure, I understand his frustrations, but like I said, space exploration is really expensive.
Yeah.
And I think for us, Africa, to venture into it, we can't do it alone. We need to come together. We must, maybe West Africa or maybe the whole of Africa coming together, just like the Europeans. The Europeans came together, and then now they're able to launch their own people into space. So I think one is the cause. Now, two, as Charles, as you also said, like we have professors and that kind of stuff, and they are not able to like come out with discoveries and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I understand his frustrations. I think it boils down to our educational system is the structure, our curriculum. Like I told you, I learned about Newton's first law, second law, law of gravitation and all that. When I went to med school, I never used them until when I went to do aerospace medicine.
Wow.
When I went to do aerospace medicine, and those laws came back, and then you apply them, then you know
that was outside of Ghana.
Yeah, that was outside of Ghana. So I think it is our structure, our educational structure. Yeah, so that is one. Yeah, that is one of it.
We have another call on the line. Hello, Bunch.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Good evening, and thank you for calling.
Good evening. My name is Bunch, like you said. I want to ask, what do you have? How do black holes come up, and then what do we have in them? I know that, how do you call it? Everything falls into black holes, but then I don't really understand the concept of black holes. If you could explain them to me.
Okay, Bunch will explain that in a bit. That's it. We have another. Do we have another caller on the line? Yes, we have another caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I'm Farid from Labwani.
Hi, Farid. Thank you for calling Geek Squad.
Okay, I'm grateful to be on air. I first of all, I want to commend you for this program. I mean, it's good to talk technology, especially in this part of the world, and particularly with space movement. I want to ask your guest,
Yes, sir.
what does he know about space tourism? I know in Africa or in Ghana, when you talk about going to space, is sort of lofty because of our own problems. But I've heard a lot about space tourism developing in the United States. How much does he know about that? And just quickly, I know this is not part of your topic. Can you help me out? What are some of the things to look out for in buying an iPhone to know whether it's quality? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the last part of your question, if you join the Geek Squad group on Telegram, we have a lot of experts there who can answer it for you. So before Doc answers the questions from the callers, let me read some messages. We have Jimmy says, good evening. Please, let's do well to separate space exploration per se from the moon landing. Moon landing in itself has not brought anything to mankind except to foist our ego and break our pride. The money spent could have solved so many of our human problems, including design of an industry that does not depend heavily on fossil fuel. And he says we're on the brink of catastrophe due to climate change, which we can't seem to find solutions for. Mankind is thinking of Mars. That's from Jimmy. So, yes, Doc, before I continue with the messages, I think I'm going to have to close the phone lines because we have so many questions to answer. So let me pick the last caller. Hello, Daniel. You're my last caller.
Yes, Kobe, good evening.
Good evening, sir, and welcome to Geek Squad.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned earlier about something about like the satellite giving us internet access and all that. I know it's true, but I want to find out how it works. How something that's like thousands of miles away from us, like give us internet and like we exchange data. It helps us in exchanging data.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll answer that in a bit. Thank you very much for calling, Daniel. And that is my last call. If you want to send some messages through our WhatsApp and Telegram, you can do so. We have 3 minutes. Doc, we'll have to rush the answers.
Yeah, with the concept of black holes, yeah, I'm not an expert in that, so I don't want to venture into it. And no, in regards to space tourism, yeah, I think he wanted to know what Africa is doing also. Yeah, so space tourism basically, like I mentioned earlier, in the next 2 years we're going to have it's just like launching people into space, either suborbital or orbital flights. So you just go up and then you come down. That's suborbital, depending on how much you can pay. And then if you can pay more, they take you around the Earth, once, and then bring you down. So basically, that is space tourism. To also have the feel of what astronauts have, like you get to experience weightlessness, and weightlessness is real fun. I've experienced it. Wow. You need to, So you go and then you feel those kind of stuff, and then you come back, and that is what all we call tourism. Tourism is just going to see what is on the other side,
Okay, so Parker Alote says All Nation University in Koforidua has already launched a satellite for Ghana into space to the help of Japan, Kyushu. That was what I was mentioning. And then we have another message that says, that's from Miranda. Hi, Joy FM. I'm really enjoying this show. I'm a great fan of astronomy, but there's no place in Ghana for that. Are you sure, Miranda? Anyway, all too soon we've run out of time. It's so amazing how 1 hour just comes so quickly. But unfortunately, thank you so much, Dr. Yakubu Akparibu, for coming. He's an aerospace medicine specialist, and we've been talking about space exploration and lots about space. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And hopefully we'll have you on again on another space or aerospace related topic. My name is Kobe Spike Nkrumah. You've been listening to Geek Squad. And thank you to my producers, Selwyn, Dennis Fairboy, Abeku Sankofi Delaglanu, and Augustin Holm. Before I leave, I have to do something. I have to say happy birthday to someone. So happy birthday to Caroline AC Mensah. This is from Parkwesi Eduku. He says, have a good one. Next week, I'll catch you guys.